Hi, this is the Social Gelo with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gelo with Angelo show.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Social Gelo with Angelo. I really appreciate you checking out the show. Please stay tuned for after the show for some new things that I'm developing. I'll talk about that later. This is part of the Kajukenbo series. I know maybe some people may not consider it part of the Kajukenbo series, but I do interview our brother Kyle from a Kempo background. And he kind of talks a little bit about his Kempo background. And I'm going to develop another podcast about the relationship between Kajukenbo and Kempo. That's not this episode. This episode is about Kyle's journey. I really hope you enjoy it.
All right, so I'm here with Kyle. Okay, your last name is Rozewski?
Rozewski.
All right.
Yeah.
Kempo brother and also MMA fighter and MMA coach coming out of Shanghai, China. The name of your gym is Animal MMA, is that right? Or did I mess that up?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, cool.
No, that's correct.
Good. Right on, cool. My memory served me right for the first time ever. Okay, so, well, before we get started, I always ask all my people this. This is part of the Kajukenbo series, as I mentioned earlier. Even though Kyle is not a Kajukenbo practitioner, he's related through the Kempo side, which is why I'm saying he's one of our Kempo brothers. For you Kajukenbo listeners or people that don't know anything about Kajukenbo, Ed Parker, I believe, is a really significant figure in the Kempo community, right?
Yeah, it's Parker Kempo. Yes.
Yeah, Parker Kempo. And he was, a while ago, there's some history between Kajukenbo and Ed Parker and the Kajukenbo community working with the Parker Kempo guys. So that's why I say he's kind of like a distant martial arts relative, if you will. But this episode is not about the history. It's about Kyle's journey. So, Kyle, real quick, how did you get started on your martial arts journey, brother?
Well, when I was like 4 years old, I was actually scholastic wrestling. I did that for a long time. And then for some reason, when I was early teen years, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. And when I had the harsh realization that I could not jump very high, it was time to go back down to the ground again. So we just kind of went back and did a little more wrestling. Then I started Kempo when I was 21 or 22. One of those years. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I really wanted to do mixed martial arts. I saw a live event on TV and it was really inspirational. So a buddy of mine actually, we started the Kempo on accident, and it just turned out to be the closest school to where I was from, where my parents were living, I should say, at the time. Very desolate area in Western New York with not a lot of martial arts academy options. But thankfully, I ended up at a Kempo school, and I really enjoyed it, and we just kind of took it from there.
So before that, you said you did a lot of scholastic wrestling. So you were doing wrestling back like in high school and...
Oh yeah. Even before that, like I said, 4 years old. Our town didn't have a whole lot of money for athletic programs for children. So it was like basketball or wrestling. Like those are your choices.
Wow. So you ended up wrestling. So my other question I had here was, did you practice other styles before Kempo? So I'm wrestling. You did wrestling before Kempo.
Yeah. So I wrestled like I said, like freestyle, like scholastic wrestling for a long time. And then I think when I was 11 years old, I did about a year of Taekwondo. Oh. I got to be like an orange belt, and then I remember it was like one day, it was like one of our first times sparring, and I was just really too excited, and I think I went too hard. And then they asked me to calm down or whatever, or I come back next time, and then we just never went back for whatever reason. I think my parents found it too stimulating, perhaps.
And then what would you, I know it's kind of probably a big gap, right? Because you said that was when you were a kid, and then you got back
Yeah.
in. You got into Kempo when you were in your 20s.
Yes.
But do you remember noticing any differences from your childhood experiences with Taekwondo and then jumping into Kempo?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, like I said, when I was younger, it was too stimulating, and I don't think I understood all the ideals and everything. And it wasn't, for lack of my teaching or coaching that I was available to me. That the teachers were great. I was just too young to understand the principles of what I was doing, and I just like wanted to do backflips and throw fireballs and stuff. So I didn't get it. But then when I got older and really figured everything out and like the ideology of it all and the reasoning why, then it just kind of clicked and made much more sense and became almost natural, I guess.
And you started doing Kempo, and you were in. Where were you at that point? You were still in New York?
Yeah, yeah, Western New York.
In Western New York.
My Kenpo studying was in Alden, New York.
Okay. So you started doing Kempo out there because you were watching televised MMA fights. I'm guessing you were watching the UFC. Is that
Correct. Yeah, yeah. It was it was back in those days, in the old glory days.
okay?
And
Well,
yeah, no, go ahead, please. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah. So Glory Days, probably. Pride. Pride was still around back then, right? Too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That was a very big component of the inspiration as well. Um, yes, as we saw these, and like, we were trying to find something or some kind of avenue to get to do that. And the only thing we had within 2 hours was this karate school, this Kempo dojo. So a buddy of mine and I, we signed up just to go to the sparring classes on Tuesday nights at first,
So you just
and then
started
we
to
ended
come.
up just staying after.
Oh, all
I'm
right.
sorry, go ahead.
So you came in. You came in for the sparring first. You came in for the sparring.
Yeah, I mean, we had spoken with the owner of this school and kind of told him what our intentions were and what we wanted to do with everything. And he's like, yeah, well, we have sparring on Tuesday nights. Come in, and we went in and well, like immediately there wasn't like a warm up or whatever. They put me with this black belt who beat my ass. Like he just like worked me over for a while, and then I was like, just I was impressed with everything that happened and like how unable I was to do anything. So I had to go back the next day and figure it out.
Right on. And at that point,
Yeah,
you go in just straight for sparring. You've been watching some MMA videos or watching MMA fights. What
correct.
what did you were you doing like any self practice back then? Like I don't know, shadow boxing
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
anything?
Um, the like I said, the aforementioned buddy I had, like it was always him and I together. My friend Jimmy Sari, and before we even had the Kempo dojo, we had like a milk house that like, he worked on a farm, and off hours we would go to the milk house of this farm, and it was winter when we started, so we had to use this terrible like diesel heater, and it was either super cold or super hot, and it was always like 10-minute intervals at best of either. So you're either passing out from like close to dying from frostbite, or you were dying from just consumption of poisonous gas. It was really interesting, but yeah, it was like in this side little crappy house of a barn, and we were like punching frozen tires, and we know what we were doing. We were just trying to avoid tetanus, basically. But yeah, we started there for a while, and we did that for like I think 3 or 4 months, and then we finally found the dojo. We talked to Sensei Cook and and kind of worked everything out. And then what we would do is we'd go sparring, and then there was always an administrative work to be done afterwards. So there's always somebody left in the office. So for a while, they would just kind of allow us to be there for 2 hours afterwards, and we would just like try jujitsu. We didn't know what we were doing yet at all, and I mean, it wasn't really even like a thing on YouTube yet that you could find videos for. But we would just like try to do stuff to each other and just fail miserably, and just experiment. So we did that for a long time until we built the rapport and we established trust, and then we were able to just kind of get a key and stay after, come and go when we please. And we were just so dedicated with that. Not long after that, we ended up teaching.
Oh wow! So you started coming in. on your own, practicing on your own. Then you started trying to figure out how the whole Kempo system worked, and you started picking up Kempo, and
Correct.
and then from there, as time went by, which came first? You said you started teaching Kempo. Is that right?
No, excuse me. At first, we started teaching MMA.
Oh, okay, okay,
So,
okay.
so what had happened was, we took the Kempo classes and everything, and then we stayed after, and maybe the second month, like the very beginning of the second month, all of a sudden, it started to be like Jimmy and I plus like 10 people, then plus like 15, then plus like 20 people all of a sudden. And Sensei one night is like, wow, like we should just make this a class. Like it doesn't make sense not to. So he proposed a trade. Like I could basically because at the time I was still working, trying to figure out what my next move in life was going to be. So money was very short. So he offered to trade where if I taught this MMA class for him, I could do all of my Kempo training for free.
Oh, nice.
So it just made a lot of sense. And then one kind of led to the other. And since I started training more Kempo, I started really advancing the system quickly and understanding and grasping quickly. So I started teaching that after I was teaching the MMA.
All right, so you were, if I get the story right, first 3 months, you were staying. You gained some rapport with the teacher, and
Mhm.
you started training in MMA with your friend, and then more people became interested in that class. That became a
Correct.
program, and that was just a way to kind of supplement your own training for the Kempo training that you got to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly.
All right, and I guess this is kind of. I guess I don't know which one came first, but when did you know that you wanted to start teaching? Like, did you start? Which came first? Did you start teaching or did you start cage fighting first?
Teaching first. Teaching happened
Oh,
before the first fight.
oh
Yeah.
wow. Oh,
Well, I mean, like, it was up to him and I basically because we had no MMA schools and like that. Like, we wanted to be MMA fighters, but we went to a Kempo dojo. So the way we looked at it is like these people could help us with our stand up. It doesn't really fit into the niche of what we're looking at, but this is like the closest thing that we have to work with. I had some wrestling background, and we could just kind of like fill in the gaps with the jiu-jitsu and stuff, whatever we could find online, and try to practice with each other. So we started really simple, really rudimentary stuff, and then just kind of built off that. And mainly at first, because like back then there wasn't like no one was doing like 10th Planet or Twisters, like Rubber Guard wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? Like none of the stuff was a thing yet. So we had a very limited catalog of moves to do. So we put a lot of cardio in it, and it ended up being like a circuit training class that started. Then there'd be like 10 minutes of armbar, 10 minutes of like a triangle, something after that, and then we would just try to roll or spar, and hopefully nobody dies. And then that's really how it went for like 2 years. um, but then like as time goes by, you gain knowledge and experience, and you figure out what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. So things kept like improving slowly. We Jimmy and I both got a fight on the same card, but then my opponent ended up backing out or canceling it the day of. So Jimmy got the fight first, and it was really just it was bittersweet because like I didn't get to participate in the degree I wanted to, but now I could fully kind of watch his whole journey come to be, and that was neat. And it sucks. I feel bad now that I cornered him because like at the time, like who the hell else is gonna do it? But now I feel remiss that I wasn't ready to be doing that for him, and I probably caused him a disservice. So I mean that sucks, but yeah, it's just a cool memory to have together. So yeah, he
wow.
fought first, and I fought shortly after, like a couple months after, and I just kept going.
So you started fighting. You already had your MMA program going at the Kempo school. This was about
Correct.
a year or two into your training with the Kempo,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying to mix it up and just trying to do what you can with the resources you had. And
Correct.
when you started fighting, Where did you start fighting, in New York or?
No, it was still illegal in New York then.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And this,
I'm pretty sure it's still
yeah.
illegal now, right? Like it's been illegal for a long
No, no,
time.
no, no. Now it's legalized
Oh,
as
really?
of 2018. I want to say, yeah, they had the
Okay.
first show in Madison Square Garden, and then they've had it Buffalo
Oh.
since then too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but it was essentially like, was it 2 years after I had moved out of China? It became legalized and it was ratified in the city of New York. So before then, I did all of my amateur career in Ohio, and then I had my first two professional fights in Connecticut. And then, as far as America goes, the rest of them were either Ohio or West Virginia.
All right. And then somewhere
Yeah.
in this journey, as you just kind of briefly mentioned, and I think I already mentioned it earlier that you're coming from Shanghai, China.
Mhm.
How did you end up in China?
Well, actually, I had a few good fights in a row, and then there was better part of a year, probably like an 8 month period of time where I was just training. It was like 6 to 8 hours a day of training. I had a part time job, but I was also commentating fights. I was just like traveling, cross training like crazy, to just really trying to establish a name in the community. And it just got to a point where I like I had my own like podcast show and everything, where people start asking me, to come to these shows and do this, like kind of stop by, be a guest sort of thing. And it was nothing to the point of being like celebrity or famous. I'm not claiming that by any means at all, obviously, because nobody knows who the hell I am still. But just in the manner of like, I'm starting to establish a a known presence at these shows. Like, oh yeah, well this guy knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna bullshit you about anything with this. Like educated guy, fighter, like he knows what he's doing basically, and he's not going to make you look stupid if you want to have him as some kind of a face or voice for your company. So I started getting more and more known, like went around more. Had a couple good fights, and then I got an email from a guy who was actually from America, but was living in China at the time to come out and compete for a few months just to try to like see what the land was like. And I did. My girlfriend at the time, Rebecca, and we came out together, and she's also a fighter, so we both came out, competed, and we really liked it. So we came back and ended up coaching more, and we did like 2 or 3 3 month stays, and then just decided to make it a permanent move.
All right. So when did you leave the Kempo school?
I believe it was 2012 or 13 maybe. When I turned pro for MMA, I had to move to Ohio just to kind of really accommodate the MMA career that I wanted.
All right.
It
All
had been
right.
too difficult to try to train up here without a real school and then go down to Ohio to fight, like when I had camps and stuff. So it made sense.
And so you went down to Ohio to a MMA gym.
Yes, Evolve MMA.
All right. All right. All right. So you need to evolve MMA to continue
Yeah.
your progress. Did you stop training in Kempo at that point, or did you keep training on your own? Or
Well, when I would come back to New York, I would train, but it's it's hard to find Kempo schools, honestly. There were none in Ohio in my area. I would have had to drive like 3 hours in southern Ohio to find one. So sadly, as far as my progression, I was still training Kempo, but my progression stopped there.
all right. All right. It's like the opposite problem. Like over there, you couldn't find MMA, and then to another place,
Yeah,
and then you
right.
can't find Kempo.
Yeah.
So you kept progressing, as you mentioned earlier. You started your professional career as an MMA fighter,
Hmm.
and I kind of want to maybe we have some time, so I kind of want to talk about a little bit. I want to touch on that transition that a lot of people, I feel it's kind of a mystery to them. Like a lot of people, maybe
Okay.
martial artists and non-martial artists have this idea that to become big in MMA, you get as many fights as you can, and then you become a professional, and then you're on the UFC, and then that's it. Like that's how a lot of people see it. Like they just they don't really know the
No.
steps and the stuff in the
Yeah.
back, like all the stuff that happens in the background.
Right.
And the fact that the UFC isn't the only venue that MMA fighters have
Mm-hmm.
to make a career out of themselves. So would you mind kind of explaining that a little bit, like kind of demystifying that process
Yeah,
with
for
your
sure.
story?
So, well, my story in particular is just I mean, I moved kind of away from the opportunities, as I was not able to foresee when they were coming. Where I leave New York, it becomes legal in New York. It's just it's that kind of thing. It's I've always kind of accidentally been running from MMA, or I should say even the UFC. But as far as that goes, now that there are a billion fighters now, I mean, there's just so many dudes to where it's foolish to think that anybody is going to get inside the UFC when they have anything less than 10 fights already. It's just it's silly. When I was active in America, the rule was you had to have at least 5 amateur fights. So this is fighting not only for free, but like paying your own money for the medical test, paying your own money to get to where like the travel was now covered. You know what I mean? You're paying basically. I think my first amateur MMA fight, it probably cost me about like $350 between the national license, the state license, the medical tests, the gasoline for travel. I think the only thing that was covered was the hotel that night. So there's just this giant like grand package prize thing that everybody feels like is going to happen immediately. It's not there. So this is just an amateur level. This is unpaid fights. You're basically paying all these medical stuff just to be able to compete, just to potentially get hurt. Now, at the time, the rules may have changed, but it was you needed at least 5 amateur fights before you considered turning professional. Before anybody even was like thinking of allowing you to be a professional fighter, you had to have at least 3 of those be wins. So it had to have a winning record of the 5, and then the most recent fight you had to be a win as well. So if you were like 2-2 as an amateur, and then you lose a fight, that's your 5th fight, but you still couldn't turn pro. And this is in Ohio anyway. So you'd had to fight again as an amateur, win that fight just to be able to be considered to be allowed to be a professional. So this all works state by state as well. Every state has different rules. So I had 9 amateur fights, but I actually ended up losing my last amateur fight by decision in the state of Ohio. But then I got a fight offer in the state of Connecticut as a professional. And that was my next one. So I kind of found a loophole in the system, but still, again, like you go up there and there's no guarantees on anything as far as win, lose, money wise. There's you don't know what's going to happen. It's a fight. So all that being said, you're basically paying money and taking chances just to get job interviews is the best way to really kind of articulate this. Now, what you see in the UFC, the guys that have like maybe 10 fights, 15 fights, these dudes are all like 15-0, 13-2, 14-1, but they have like 10 knockouts. They have 10 crazy submissions. You can't go in and be like a decision-winning fighter because it says one that like you're not like pressing it, so you're probably not going to be an exciting fighter to watch according to the fan base. So you're not going to be selling pay-per-view gates. You're not going to be selling tickets to live audiences. All these things factor in, and it even comes down to things like, and I hate to put it in such, but these are the most real terms as possible. Are you an ugly fighter? Are you a boring fighter? All these things are absolute factors. Where did you come from? Like even down to the political alignment of what state you're from. Because maybe if you can sell tickets there, but the owner of the company isn't the same political alignment, you guys aren't going to see eye to eye. It's crazy, but it goes that far. So to really like get to that level now, you have to be something special, and you have to get great opportunities. And the best way to do this is to go to good camps. The best way to get into good camps and even be accepted in the door for these classes is you have to make a name for yourself. So it always reminds me of going back to that cycle when you're 16. It's like, oh, I need a car, but I need a job to get a car. I need a car to get a job. You know what I mean? It's like the same shit. Like you have to establish yourself, but you need a team. But you need a team to establish yourself. And for all that shit to happen, like everything has to like fall in line correctly, and then maybe you get like a contender series fight for UFC. Then you have to win that. That's your job interview. And then every single fight you have after that is another job interview. So it's like every single time you go out, you're literally fighting to keep your job. So it's a very hard road, and that's why so few people do it, and even fewer people have such great success at it.
And how did you not get discouraged in the middle of all that?
Oh, I mean, yeah, UFC would be cool, but it's not what I need for my legacy. You know, like my goal was to be a successful MMA fighter, and I guess it really depends on what you value as success. Like I was able to take something that really at the time I started was kind of like a passion project, or even if you want to call it such, like a last ditch option to do something with it. And now I'm able to support my family with it. Like I'm able to, through fighting, have a career, have a self-sustaining gym. You know, I have business of my own. Basically, all through just getting punched in the face, for lack of better terms. I was never cut out for studying or 9-to-5 jobs, so I had to figure out something. And literally, I would rather get punched in the face than work a 9-to-5. So here we are. There were definitely more than a few times of discouragement. I mean, anytime you get hurt and you can't go train. I mean, anytime even like some stupid like ringworm or staph infection happens, you can't train. It's like, well, you know, why the hell am I doing this? If everything can be jeopardized by some stupid little lack of soap, like what the hell is this all for? It just doesn't make sense. But I mean, that's the way it is with everything. That's the way it is in life for everybody, which is more evident now than ever. I mean, we're all in the same crap. Doesn't matter what profession you are. You're stuck at home right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it kind of levels the playing field mentally, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
You kind of answered the question I had down the line about how martial arts helped you outside the dojo. But yeah, looking at it, you kept pushing forward. Like you said, you were never cut out for the standard 9-to-5 job, and that's what kind of pushed you to push yourself to get what you.
Well,
what you
a lot of it is
done.
too. Like my wife has been here the whole time as well. You know, like it's been very much a team effort kind of thing. Like there's been times where I can't get fights, you know, or I don't have a coaching job, or I'm not working. She works, and then she works more. She would be coaching. She'd be doing like private boxing lessons in the park, or she's teaching classes. And then, you know, vice versa. Like, when she couldn't get fights, maybe I had to do extra ones for someone have like 2 in one night, you know, like 3 in 1 week, something. Like, it's just back and forth. There's no way I could have done this on my own, for sure. There's absolutely no way. I think if I had been by myself, the discouragement definitely would have. I think I want to say it wouldn't have won, but you know, I can't say for sure. But I tend to believe that I would not have been able to survive, especially in a foreign country, if she hadn't been here. So it's one of those things that everybody else needs to understand, especially as a fighter. Like, even if you're the only guy fighting, there are so many people that have to help you get there. It's not an individual sport.
So kind of going back to like when we were talking about, you know, I have a question on here at the end of the show where I say, what advice do you have for someone starting in martial arts? But I think I'm going to go more right now into your story as as a journey in MMA, kind of looking at the idea that, first of all, you have to get a lot of fights, you have to win a lot of fights, you have to have a good support network, you have to have a
Yeah.
good team. A lot of people do look at fighting as an individual sport, but you're saying it's not. It has to do with your camp and it has to do with your team, because
Yeah.
they're the ones that are going to get you through that.
For sure.
So, in your case, you went from you felt there was more opportunities for you to fight and get paid in China. So
Yeah.
you went to
Yep.
China to fight. What kind of venues were you fighting for in China?
Oh man, that's when we first got here. That was a crapshoot. Um, the very first fight event that I had, well, it was an MMA fight. I don't remember what city it was in, to be honest with you. But there were standing 8 counts for MMA fights. Like, people just didn't even know what it was yet. I literally this fight, on my record, I call it, and this is my ego, like saying like, oh, it's a no contest. Somewhere in someone's books, it's considered a loss. But I got basically knocked down, and I am a ground fighter, So it's like, cool, if we go to the ground, whatever, come what may. But I got knocked down and then standing 8 count, and then when I didn't get up in time, and I'm completely coherent and fine, like I'm fighting MMA. The referee starts counting and then waves his hands, and I'm dumbfounded. I'm just like, okay, um, do I have to say sorry to somebody for this? Like, I don't. What's the next step here? And I just remember being very confused, trying not to freak out, and then our manager telling us, "Oh, this is just how things are here. Like, nothing can do about it." And my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, but oh man, she was so mad, just like trying not to rip people's heads off. It's like, okay, like, well, you know, we'll just talk this one up to experience, and then we'll see what happens the next time. And the next one I remember a bit more clearly. We went to Jinan, and the big takeaway in my head still mentally from this is the bathroom. So this was like the equivalent of a high school that was next to like a soccer/football field, and on the ends of this field, one of the ends of this field was this outhouse bathroom that I'm not lying. I'm not embellishing. You could smell when you got off the bus like 800 meters away. Like it was amazing. It was a place. This outhouse was so dirty. My wife walked into it, came back out, and looked at me. She said, "I choose to go out behind it." Like, my wife literally went outside of the outhouse. Like, that's how bad it was. Anyway, so we have to walk, and then we our warm area is like this little tiny gym that's attached to this school. After we walk across this field, and every fighter's in there, so it's not just like blue corner, not just red corner. Like, everybody in there is together, and we are like two of the three foreigners. So it's really weird for us, and we were both fighting that night too. Um, so we were just getting ready and like feeling awkward. Like, it's not been like this for us anywhere else ever. This is our first time where like we have integrated locker rooms, and we're both fighting, and so it's just a very like tense air. We get escorted. She fought first, and we get escorted to like, it looks like this little fishbowl of. It's like if the Coliseum and the fishbowl had a baby. It's just a really tiny, like, just, I don't know, like, gladiator venue, but it was very much shaped in like, a spherical manner, and it was packed. It was just it was nut to butt inside it, and then like people were literally like sneaking into these like giant metal gates outside, and they had military with guns. It was really, I don't know, it was an intimidating scene. Becca won her fight. She's like murdered this girl, so like we're all happy. But everybody is so amazed at the white people being there. Like, we could not even leave the venue to go back to the locker room to get ready for my fight. Like people just wouldn't move. So I had to like scream. Like, I had to use like my anger voice, like, move. And like these dudes with guns are like using like the bayonets to like get us space between these crowds and people trying to sneak in. So we went back and like got ready for my fight, and it was a real wild fight, but we both ended up winning that night. But I just remember like at any time feeling like these guys with guns, there's only about 4 or 5 of them. There's like I don't know how many people here that are just in the crowd. Like this could go south at any time. It's just, we're the only foreigners here. Like I don't feel safe at all. But it turned out to be like one of the most gratifying and like a really nice, like heartwarming experiences we've had here. It was the first time we both fought together the same night. We both won. Actually, a lot of that night was in this documentary that we're in, and it was just a lot of memories. Like it was just a really scary beginning, but wonderful ending. But
You,
yeah, just things like that, just random places where you don't know if you're gonna walk out of it when you walk in, and then you end up having like an awesome night. It's not the comfort zone for sure.
and you mentioned a documentary. You want to let my listeners know where they can find it and the name?
Yeah, it's called The New Masters. I don't know how much it has to be left editing it. It's one of those like been editing for 5 year project type things,
Okay.
but it's got Song Kanan from UFC as well, and a couple other fighters who are doing the same thing we are, like being over here in China and trying to spread and develop MMA across the country.
And again, just to clarify, this wasn't through the UFC. This is through other venues that pay people to come out and fight.
Oh, correct. Yeah, there's so many. There's just an infinite amount. There's no sanctioning body here. Like we're in the U.S., there is an athletic commission, state by state, and then a national athletic commission. So every bout is sanctioned. There's like specific rules have to be followed in order for this to be considered an actual bout. They don't have that out here. Like in America, if you lose a fight by any way, shape, or form, you have a period that you're not allowed to fight again. Even if you win a fight, like you can't go fight again the next week. You know, it's just not allowed by the health commissions. It's not legal. Here, it's like there's been a couple times I fought twice in one night. You know, 3 times in a week, and it's just in America maybe like you fight once every 3 months, 4 months. You have like training camps. Here, it's like, hey, you busy Saturday? Here, you weigh this much? Cool, get on a train. So I mean that's it's crappy, but it's also cool because I mean if you're in shape and you need the money and want the opportunity, then it's awesome. But at the same time, it's like if you don't understand the consequences and the long term effects of what's happening to your body as you're fighting, it's a short term cool, long term shit. Just the
So you
you
kind
know
of
like
you kind of have to know your own. You have to
yeah
be
yeah I
your
remember
own guardian, if you will, in the middle of all that.
yeah yeah. I have the one fight I have for one FC I took on like a few days notice, and actually I got a call during our anniversary party. So I was literally like puking. Like I was puking from drinking too much when I got a call from when I see to fight in a couple of days.
Oh shit.
I'm like, all right, you know what, whatever, we'll do that. That's cool. And I ended up losing the fight. It was a shitty camp, whatever. But you know, that's one of those things. But then I remember not long after that, we're talking about move. Like we moved our apartment, and I'm thinking about retiring. You know, like I'm getting older. I'm like 34, 35. I don't know if I should keep doing this. And then during the ONE FC fight, I was approached by this guy about some fight league, and like we don't speak the same language, so it was a really like rough, muddled conversation. And then I said, yeah, you know, whatever, cool, like, we'll talk later. And somehow through this, I ended up agreeing to fight for this fight team in a league, and I had no idea. And this was called Shin Women, and like I was literally considering retiring. And then they tell me December 2017, okay, you got to fight. Okay, cool. When is it? Like February, March? No, it's in 2 weeks. Like, oh, no. It's like, no. What you told us you would. Like, look, at your name is on this paper, and then he shows me this whole list and lineup of something I'm already a part of, and I had no idea. And it's this whole seasonal thing, to where basically every team has 5 fighters, and it's not like a team. Like we're not like fighting all at the same time, but it's like you have 1 fight, 2 fights, 3 fights. You have 5 different fights for your team, and your team has to win 3 of those to advance to the next round. So it's kind of like a tournament play thing. And again, I had no idea I'm in it, but we kept winning. So it was me and like these 4 guys, and they changed every time. Like I had a new team every time I went and fought. So it's just like the white dude and then these guys. But we kept winning, and then it just like this instead of like having a fight every month, This was a monthly event, and there was no like you have to fight this guy in particular. It's your team fights this team. So before this given day or this like cutoff for this event, this team can switch out anybody they want to at that weight. So like you have no idea who the hell you're fighting, who's you're fighting with, who's on your team, who's against you, and you just kind of like rock out there and just hope for the best. And I just remember I didn't talk to anybody the first three fights. I'm like eating by myself. Everybody thought I was crazy and that I was deaf, like I couldn't talk. And it was just I was just super isolated, you know. And it was a fight every single month, and I was feeling like crap for the first one, but I ended up winning like four in a row, you know. And then I'm feeling awesome, and then I lost my fifth one, and then I lost by decision. So I fought all 15 minutes of this MMA fight that Saturday in May, and then the following Saturday I ended up having a boxing fight, and that also went to decision. So it's like stuff like that doesn't happen in America. You know, you get like one maybe every 3 months. Like I literally had one every month for Chin Woo Men, and then two in the same month with a boxing fight. So it's just
Wow.
they, yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's good and bad because no one knows what long term effects of this will be for other people. You know, like I'm thankfully good at defense and good at covering my stupid face up, but a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
And there's some long term health risks that are involved with this that people don't understand here yet.
And somewhere, I know we're almost wrapping up with our hour here, but somewhere in the middle of all of this, you opened your gym. Did you open your gym when you first came out, or did that happen a little later? How did that happen?
Oh no, we worked for other people for a while, and we just got sick of that and just how people were treating their employees and their fighters. So we decided to open the gym, my wife and I, a year and a half ago.
Okay. All right.
And we started a small place, and then we got a bigger place and like expanded, and now we're still kind of building up, getting through this whole virus thing. We're still surviving, still alive, and getting better.
And I was noticing that I saw a picture of you with a belt. Is that correct? Did you eventually win a championship?
Which I actually have 8.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. I have 3 from America, and then I've won 5 out here.
Oh, nice. And
Yeah.
what years did that happen in, if you don't mind?
So the first belt that went out here was one of those 2 fights in one nights tournament things. That was 2000, the end of 2015, and then I won my second one in the end of 2017. Third one was in Macau in August 2017. Then I won another in Shanghai May 2018, and then 2019 in August was the recent World Championship in Macau.
All right. Well, first of all, congratulations on that win and on being able to accumulate the rest of them.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's awesome, man. I guess we're almost finishing up here, but I want to get your thoughts real quick. What do you think about using Kempo in MMA?
So there's a lot of self-defense techniques in Kempo, in particular, like that end with throat chops or nut gouges. You know, things that rules in MMA don't apply, and obviously I can't use those. But I do use a lot of the motions, especially. It sounds weird, but a lot of the kata. Some of the moves are inapplicable. Like you cannot do an upward block into like a downward raking eagle beak in the UFC and expect any kind of success from that. But a cat stance, you know, switching from like a forward bow to a neutral bow, a step through, you know, roundhouse, like things like this, like transitions as far as your footwork and your stance are really awesome. And I've learned so much of this through Kenpo, and it has made my stand up weird and mildly unpredictable for people. And that's awesome because I'm slow and I'm not an explosive striker, you know. So I need to have these kind of sneaky tricks and little nuances to my stance and my approach to have these advantages. So yeah, Kempo's been awesome for MMA for me.
And you mentioned kata too. You said that
Hmm.
kata's helped you with your stances and your footwork. What do
Yep.
you what is your thought? What are your thoughts on kata? I know some people hate it, and I know when I
Yep.
talked to like I mentioned earlier, I interviewed John Hackelman. If you all haven't seen that episode, scroll through, you'll find it in the Kajukenbo series. But I know for him in particular, he really hated kata and he eliminated it from his system. But
Yep.
what are your thoughts? How has kata helped or not helped you?
Well, see, he is able to do that because he's a world famous striking coach known from MMA. You know, so a lot of the people that go to see him want to eliminate that kind of stuff and just kind of go where he goes. For me, it's I would want to eliminate 90% of the kata, let's say. So, like I said, like I'm not gonna be doing eagle beaks or like like crane stances or anything like that. But step through techniques, V steps, cat stances. I see a lot of this and I apply a lot of this just in my movements and I feel like if I can get rid of the things that really are inapplicable and not super effective, but still have the movements and the motions and things that create inertia and momentum, then I can keep those while adding it to more efficient strikes and more thought out, advanced combinations. Then yeah, like
Awesome.
that's cool. But I tend to lean on the same side of the fence as Mr. Hackelman.
Yeah, and I mean like you said, we have a saying in Kajukenbo, and Hackelman created his own version of Hawaiian Kempo, but he comes from our branch of Kajukenbo.
Hmm.
And the reason he was able to become and do what he did and have that freedom is because Kajukenbo allows their students to, once they get their black belts, to eliminate what they don't like and kind of
Hmm.
create their own system. No, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
system. Kajukenbo is a system, but they're allowed to apply their own methods to that system. So that's where it kind of works as far as what you just mentioned, throwing away what's not
Yeah,
useful for you.
Capo is a beautiful thing, and you can make any martial art that you want, kind of like a paint by number. And what I mean by this is your sensei can give you this beautiful outline of a picture and give you specific colors to use, but what shade is up to you. And that's the really cool thing and the nuance thing about MMA is you can add completely different shades to everything. There's different levels, there's different heights. There's just so many ways to lose and win that now the options are there. A beautiful portrait can be made.
Well, brother, I guess before we wrap up, what's some advice you have for someone who doesn't know anything about martial arts and wants to get started? What's your advice for them?
Listen to your gut first. Listen to your coach second, and always breathe.
Nice. Well, you heard it here. Well, I want to thank you, Kyle, one more time for joining
Thank
us.
you, Angelo. Much
And
love.
and for my listeners, please stay tuned for the wrap up.
Thank you very much for checking out this episode of Social Jello with Angelo. I really appreciate it. Right now, I'm developing a new show, I guess you can say. I started a new YouTube channel called LOL Lounge. This is just some cleanup I wanted to do. I know that a lot of you that watch this particular channel are interested in martial arts, and that's what you want. That's what this channel will always have for you, is martial arts content. Maybe some serious conversations a little later, diving more into my psychology background. But I'm going to try to keep it at that. And this will always stay a podcast. Again, if you want to check out this podcast, you don't want to watch YouTube videos, that's totally cool. If you're already listening to this as a podcast, that is, please jump on YouTube and subscribe. That's the most support you can show for the show right now. So it's just subscribe to YouTube, because if I get enough subscribers, I can finally get some money to produce more. But for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, if you don't want to watch this on YouTube, I appreciate you subscribing. If you can, or if you want, you can listen to this on TuneIn Radio, FM radio. There's a FM player. There's a whole mess of podcasting apps that you can download, and my show is there for free. I'm not on Spotify because you have to pay for that service, and I'm not looking to charge anyone to actually listen to the show. So if you want to listen to it from your phone on the go, I do suggest just look up Social Jello with Angelo on Google, and you're going to see a bunch of other podcasts and free internet apps. I personally prefer TuneIn Radio, just because it has a lot of other great podcasts like the Joe Rogan podcast, and it's all free and it's really easy. You just listen to it on the go. If you're running or if you're driving your car, you stick it on your Bluetooth and you can drive and listen to the show. That's what I like to do. I really appreciate the support, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.